Kiddushin, dafbrama. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the MinDaf. We're discussing Yefas Toyar. Klal Yisrael go to war. They were all tzaddikim. Anybody that went to war was a pure tzaddik. One of them sees the enemy and has a taiva. So the Torah tells us there's a whole procedure in order to make her your wife. And the Gemara darshans the words of the pasuk, and we learned 7 halachas here. If you saw in captivity, the cheshek, the taiva that you have must be as you capture her. You can't decide this 2 weeks later. Eishes, the Torah tells us that even if she's a Eishes, she's married, you're allowed to take her. Yefas, the Torah is talking to counter the Yetzer Hara. That it's better that Klal Yisrael should do this beheter, even though it's only b'di'evid. Like when you see an animal that's about to die and you shecht it, you're not over iser, but it's really not good. The meat is mos. It's temusais. This is similar. You really shouldn't be doing this. But if you do it beheter. V'choshakta, even if this woman is ugly, you're allowed to take one wife, not two. V'lokachta, this likuchen is Kiddushin. The Chiddush is that even though this woman becomes a giyoris bal karchach, according to Rashi, nevertheless she's a full-fledged wife. L'cha, you can't take her for your son. V'havesa, finally, according to Rashi, it means you can't have bia during the war. You have to bring her home. And now we're going to move on to the halachas of Rtzia. The halacha is that an eved has to tell his master a hafti, as ishti, as banai. The Gemara tells the Chiddush he must say it twice. When? One, all the way at the end, when there's only one pruta left of work, however many minutes that is. And one before that. It can be a year before that, 2 years, but it has to be before the last pruta. He must say it twice. Another halacha, both the master and the eved must have a wife and children. The Gemara learns that from Psukim. And the Gemara tells us like this. The slave, the eved, if he's healthy and the master is sick, he cannot do Rtzia, and vice versa. If the master is healthy and he's sick, he can't. The Gemara has a suffix. What if they're both sick? We don't know. The Gemara remains in a teiko. Here's a big chiddush. If the slave comes into this work with a wife and children, the new master has to take care of his old wife and children. Even though a wife could take care of herself, and even though the children could go knocking on doors on their own. That's why we need 2 psukim. Where it tells us you do the Rtzia through the air up until the door, and it has to be on a door that's already in a door frame. Why? The Gemara darshans, the famous drasha. Why do we take the ear and make it hole in it? Why does it have to be on a door? Because this is the ear that heard HaKadosh Baruch Hu at Sinai saying, "Ki b'nei Yisrael avadim." You should be my slaves, not another person's slave. You already worked for 6 years. Why did you decide and choose to stay on for another few years? That's wrong. And it's also the same door that in Mitzrayim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Pesach. He passed over the doors, so we do it on a door. And now, Rabbi Isai, we move on to a brand new sugi, brand new Mishnah of Eved Knani. Eved Knani is a non-Jewish slave. It's called a Knani, but it means any non-Jewish slave. You purchase him. The Mishnah is going to discuss how. Once you purchase him, you give a bris milah, toivel namikva, and now he's chayv mitzvahs kiisha. How do you purchase him? So the Mishnah tells us, bekesef shtar chazaka. These are the 3 ways to purchase a field. And there's a hekesh between an Eved and his de'achuzah field. Eved Ivri, Eved Knani, that is, does not go back to his master like an Eved Ivri in Yovel, because it says la'olam b'em ta'avodu, forever. Why doesn't the Mishnah bring chalipin? That's another way to be koina a Eved. The answer is because chalipin is something that's by metalton as well. But the Bryce who does bring it doesn't bring meshicha, because meshicha is a kinyan that only works by metalton. An animal is nikna b'meshicha. How do you do meshicha? You pull it as long as it lifts up a hand, a foot, and walks melei kamasa, the length of the animal. An animal could also be nikna by a verbal command, by calling it, and it comes to you. But an eved, who's a gadol, cannot work with a verbal command, because even if he comes to you, he's only coming because he has his own will to come. An animal is also nikna b'mesira. That is, he gives it over by you holding on to anything that's on top of the animal, like its hair, its tail, a box, its bell, whatever it is. A chazaka by a slave it means that he works for the master. In other words, he brings something for him somewhere, he gets him dressed, he picks him up. The Gemara tells us also that a slave, if the master picks up the slave, he's kainim as well. But a female slave, a shifcha, is not nikna b'bia, which there's some aspect of hagbah there, because it has to be that the slave is bitzar, there's a discomfort, and over here it's not. Even b'bia shaloi kedarka, unnatural, you think that there's a discomfort. Nevertheless, the Torah tells us mishkevei isha that there might be some hana there. Mar Zutra, says the Gemara, story. He noticed that there was a ger that was about to die. A ger didn't have any children. And a ger that doesn't have any children, you could be kind of his nechasim. And he noticed that there's a slave there. He wanted to be kind of the slave. So he told the slave, take this and bring it all the way far to my house. He knew that during that period, the master is going to die and he'll be kind of. Why didn't he just wait until the master dies and then he would be kind of? Because if the slave was a gadol, we could say one pshat, the slave was a gadol, then the slave would be kind himself. And even if the slave was a katan, we could say, not like Abishol, because Abishol holds that a katan is not zeichin himself. Over here, we'll hold that a katan could be zeichin himself, so he wanted to make sure that the slave is not going to be zeichin himself. So he told him to bring this package to his house. Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful day.